When I picked up the phone that Thursday afternoon, I had no idea my entire world was about to collapse. I was calling my son Max to ask him something simple, something normal. When is the wedding going to be? I wanted to know the date so I could start planning. So I could be ready for the most important day of my only son's life. But before Max could even answer, my daughter-in-law Lena took the phone from his hands. She looked me right in the eye through the video call, and with this chilling smile that I will never forget, she said, "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." Special people. Those two words hit me like a bucket of ice water thrown directly in my face. I stood there frozen, holding my phone as if it weighed 1,000 pounds. The room started spinning around me. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, drowning out everything else. Special people. I wasn't special enough. Me, the woman who had paid their rent every single month for 3 years. $500 month after month without missing a single payment. The woman who had bought every piece of furniture in their apartment. The sofa they were sitting on right now, the bed they slept in, the dining table where they ate their meals. All of it came from my money. I was the one who filled their refrigerator when they had nothing to eat. I was the one who ran to their rescue every time they called with another emergency, another crisis, another desperate need for money. And now, after all of that, I wasn't special enough to be invited to my own son's wedding. I stood there in my living room, watching Max avoid my gaze on the screen. He couldn't even look at me. He just sat there next to Lena, silent, letting her deliver this devastating news with that cruel smile on her face. The pale pink dress I had bought for the wedding hung in my closet upstairs. I had spent $200 on that dress. $200 I had saved carefully, planning every detail of how I would look in my son's wedding photos. I had picked out new shoes to match. I had even bought a special necklace for the occasion. All of it was useless now, because I would never appear in those photos. I would never stand next to my son on the happiest day of his life. I wasn't special enough for that honor. For weeks before this phone call, I had been planning everything. I had put money aside, $1,000 that I was going to give them as a wedding gift. I had called my sister Diana in Chicago to tell her the wonderful news that Max was finally getting married. She had been so excited for me, so happy that I would get to see my son start this new chapter of his life. I had cleaned my entire house from top to bottom, thinking that maybe after the ceremony, they would come here to celebrate. Maybe we would all sit together, drinking champagne, looking at photos, celebrating as a family. I had bought special decorations. I had even researched recipes for a celebration dinner I wanted to cook for them. All of that collapsed in a single second. All of those dreams, all of that planning, all of that hope, destroyed by 4 poisoned words. Only special people. Max finally lifted his gaze and looked at me through the screen. His voice sounded rehearsed, like he had practiced this speech. "Mom, it was an intimate thing. Very small. Just the 2 of us and the witnesses. You understand, right?" But I knew it was a lie. Even as the words came out of his mouth, I knew he was lying to me. Because just that morning, I had been scrolling through social media, and I had seen the photos. Photos that Lena's family had already posted, celebrating the wedding that supposedly didn't happen. I saw Lena's parents proudly posing next to the bride and groom. I saw her siblings raising glasses of champagne in a toast. I saw her cousins, her aunts, her uncles, all gathered together in what looked like a beautiful outdoor ceremony. There were at least 30 people in those photos. 30 special people who deserved to be there. And I saw Lena's dress. That gorgeous white wedding dress that had cost $800. $800 that I had given Lena just last month when she told me she needed money for personal expenses. I had believed her. I had transferred that money without asking questions, thinking I was helping her with something important. Now I knew the truth. She had used my money to buy a wedding dress for a wedding I wasn't invited to. She had taken my generosity and used it to celebrate a day that deliberately excluded me. I hung up the phone without saying another word. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. I walked to my kitchen and sat down at the table, staring at nothing, feeling absolutely nothing. It was like my brain couldn't process what had just happened. Like my heart couldn't accept this level of betrayal from my own son. How long I sat there, I don't know. Maybe it was 10 minutes. Maybe it was an hour. Time had lost all meaning. All I could hear in my head over and over again were those words, only special people. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and my mind kept going back through the last 3 years. Every memory, every moment, every sacrifice I had made for Max and Lena played like a movie in my head. And now, seeing it all clearly for the first time, I realized how blind I had been. It started 3 years ago when Max called me, excited about moving in with Lena. They had found this apartment, he said. It was perfect. It was exactly what they needed to start their life together. There was just one small problem. They couldn't afford the first month's rent and the security deposit. Could I help them? Just this once? Of course I said yes. What mother wouldn't? I transferred $1,500 that same day. First month's rent, security deposit, and a little extra to help them settle in. I was so happy for them. So proud that my son was taking this step toward building his future. We'll pay you back, Mom, Max promised. As soon as we get on our feet financially, we'll pay back every penny. That was 3 years ago. I'm still waiting for that first penny. The next month, Max called again. He sounded stressed. Lena had lost some hours at her job. They were a little short on rent. Could I help? Just until things stabilized, I helped. $500 transferred directly to their account. The month after that, there was another excuse. And another. And another. Before I knew it, I wasn't helping with their rent occasionally. I was paying their rent every single month. It became automatic, expected. They stopped asking and started just sending me their landlord's information for the transfer. But it wasn't just rent. It was everything. When their refrigerator was empty, I went grocery shopping for them. I filled their kitchen with food, spending $200 at a time, making sure they had everything they needed. Fresh vegetables, meat, snacks, drinks, everything. When Lena said she needed a new winter coat, I bought her one. When Max's car needed repairs, I paid for it. When they wanted to go on a weekend trip but couldn't afford it, I gave them the money. When Lena got sick and needed medication, I covered the pharmacy bills. For 3 years, I was their safety net, their backup plan, their emergency fund, their bank. And what did I get in return? I got excuses when I wanted to visit them. Sorry, Mom, we're really busy right now. I got short phone calls that always ended quickly. Thanks for the money, Mom. Gotta go. I got forgotten birthdays, forgotten holidays, forgotten promises to come visit me. I got treated like an obligation instead of a person. Like a resource instead of a mother. I remember one Christmas, I invited them to spend the day with me. I had cooked for 2 days straight, preparing all of Max's favorite foods. I had bought gifts. I had decorated my house beautifully. I was so excited to spend the holiday with my son. They showed up 3 hours late. They stayed for 45 minutes. They barely touched the food. And then Lena said they had to leave because her family was expecting them for dinner. Her family. The special people. I remember Max's birthday last year. I had saved money to take him out to his favorite restaurant. I made a reservation weeks in advance. I bought him an expensive watch he had been wanting. I called him the morning of his birthday to confirm our dinner plans. Actually, Mom, Lena planned a surprise party for me with our friends. Maybe we can do dinner next week? We never did that dinner. Next week never came. I remember when Lena told me she was going back to school to get her degree. She was so excited about it. She said it was going to change their future. But tuition was expensive. Could I help with the first semester? I gave her $3,000. She never finished that semester. She dropped out after 6 weeks. I never got an explanation. I never got my money back. Every memory was the same pattern. They needed something. I gave it, they took it. They moved on, and I was left waiting for some sign of appreciation, some gesture of gratitude, some acknowledgement that I mattered to them beyond my bank account. But that acknowledgement never came. And now, Lying in my bed at 71 years old, I finally understood the truth. I had been using my money to try to buy love from people who were never going to give it to me. I had been pouring my savings, my retirement money, my late husband's inheritance into a relationship that was completely one-sided. My husband Robert had worked so hard his entire life. He had saved every penny so that when he was gone, I would be comfortable. I would be secure. I would be able to live my final years in peace without financial worry. Robert died 5 years ago, and he left me with enough money to do exactly that. To live comfortably, to travel a little, to enjoy my retirement, to have dignity in my old age. Instead, I had given it all away to a son who couldn't even invite me to his wedding. I got out of bed at 3 a.m. and went to my office. I turned on my computer and opened my bank statements. I needed to see the exact numbers. I needed to know precisely how much of my life I had wasted on people who didn't value me. The numbers made me sick. 3 years of rent at $500 per month. That was $18,000 right there. Groceries and supplies, approximately $200 per month. Another $7,200. Birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, anniversary gifts, random just because gifts. At least $3,000. Lena's tuition that went nowhere. $3,000. Medical emergencies and pharmacy bills. $800. The car loan they never paid back. $2,500. Furniture for their apartment. $1,200. Appliances when theirs broke. $900. That vacation they took to the beach. $600. Emergency repairs on their apartment that technically wasn't even my responsibility. $600. The total came to $33,400. $33,400 I had given them in 3 years. Money that came from Robert's life insurance. Money that came from our retirement savings. Money that came from me working 40 years at jobs I didn't always love, saving every penny I could. All of it gone. Poured into the lives of 2 adults who treated me like I was disposable. I sat there at my computer, looking at those numbers on the screen, and something inside me broke. Not in a sad way, not in a way that made me want to cry or give up. It broke in a way that made me angry. Really, truly angry for the first time in 3 years. When the sun came up that morning, I was still sitting at my computer. I hadn't slept at all, but I wasn't tired. I was filled with this strange energy, this clarity I hadn't felt in years. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The same tired eyes. The same wrinkles that told stories of decades of giving love and not getting it back. The same gray hair I kept meaning to color but never had time for because I was always too busy helping Max and Lena with something. But there was something different in my reflection. Something in my eyes that I didn't recognize. A hardness. A determination. A woman who was done being walked all over. I made my coffee and sat at my kitchen table. The same table where I had cried so many times in the last 3 years. The same table where I had counted out money for their expenses, planned surprises for them, worried about them when they didn't call me back. Today, this table was witnessing something completely different. My phone rang. Max's name appeared on the screen. Normally, my heart would race. I would grab the phone immediately, desperate to hear his voice, hoping he was calling to apologize, to explain that everything had been a terrible misunderstanding. But today, I let it ring once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, until it went to voicemail. I took a sip of my coffee and felt nothing. No guilt, no anxiety, no desperate need to fix whatever was broken between us. 10 minutes later, the phone rang again. This time, it was Lena. I let that one go to voicemail too. Then a text message came through. "Mom, please answer. We need to talk." I deleted it without responding. Another text. "Mom, this is serious. Call us back." Deleted. Another text. "The rent is overdue. The landlord is threatening to evict us. We need you to make the transfer today." There it was. The real reason they were calling. Not to apologize. Not to explain. Not to acknowledge the pain they had caused me. They needed money. I turned my phone completely off and finished my coffee in peace. At 9 o'clock, I got dressed in my best outfit. I put on makeup for the first time in weeks. I looked at myself in the mirror and smiled. Today was the first day of my new life, and I was going to look good for it. My first stop was the bank. The same bank where I had made countless transfers to Max and Lena. The same bank where the branch manager, Mr. Klein, had processed every single one of my payments to them for 3 years. Mr. Klein saw me through the glass doors and waved. I walked straight to his office with a purpose in my step that surprised even me. "Mrs. Richter," he said warmly. "What can I do for you today? Another transfer?" "No, Mr. Klein," I said, sitting down across from him. "Today I need to cancel something. I need to cancel all the automatic transfers I have set up for my son and his wife. Every single one of them." His face showed genuine surprise. "For 3 years, these transfers had been as regular as clockwork." "Are you sure, Mrs. Richter? Did something happen?" I smiled at him. It was a sad smile, but also a free smile. What happened is that I finally woke up. I finally realized that I've been funding a life that has no room for me in it. Mr. Klein nodded slowly. He had seen my account drain month after month. He had watched my savings disappear. As a banker, he had probably wanted to say something for a long time but couldn't because it wasn't his place. "I also need something else," I continued. "I need to make sure that no one can access my accounts except me. I need to protect what's left of my money." "Of course," he said, already pulling up my accounts on his computer. "We can remove all authorized users immediately. We can also set up additional security measures. 2-factor authentication, verbal passwords, transaction limits." While he worked, my phone started buzzing in my purse. Even though it was turned off, I could feel the vibration. They had somehow figured out where I was. Maybe they called the bank. Maybe they just had that sixth sense that their money source was in danger. "Mrs. Richter," Mr. Klein said carefully as he handed me papers to sign. "I hope you don't mind me saying this, but in all these years I've watched you be incredibly generous with your family. I've seen your account, and I know that generosity has cost you a significant portion of your retirement savings." His words touched something deep inside me. This man, who barely knew me beyond bank transactions, was showing more genuine concern for my well-being than my own son had in 3 years. "I just want to make sure," he continued, "that you're not being pressured or coerced into making these changes. If someone is forcing you to—" "No," I interrupted him gently. "No one is forcing me, Mr. Klein. For the first time in a long time, I'm making a choice that's truly mine. I'm choosing myself." He smiled at me with something that looked like relief. "Good. That's very good to hear." When I left the bank, I felt lighter than I had in years. My money was mine again. My accounts were protected. No more automatic transfers draining away my future. No more emergency payments for people who treated me like an ATM. I stood on the sidewalk outside the bank, breathing in the fresh air, feeling the sun on my face, and I realized something incredible. For the first time in 3 years, I had no obligations today. No one was expecting money from me. No one was waiting for me to solve their problems. I was completely, utterly free, and it felt amazing. I decided to take myself out for lunch. Not a quick sandwich at home. Not leftovers from yesterday. A real lunch at a nice restaurant. The kind of place I used to avoid because every dollar I spent on myself was a dollar I couldn't give to Max and Lena. I went to this beautiful Italian restaurant downtown that I had driven past 100 times but never entered. I ordered pasta with shrimp, a glass of wine, and tiramisu for dessert. I ate slowly, savoring every bite, reading a book I had been wanting to read for months. The bill came to $45. 3 years ago, I would have felt guilty spending that much on myself. Today, I felt like I deserved it. I spent the afternoon walking through the park, sitting on a bench, watching people live their lives. Couples walking their dogs. Parents pushing strollers. Elderly friends chatting on benches. Normal people doing normal things, not living their lives as endless sources of money for ungrateful family members. When I finally went home around 4 in the afternoon, I saw 3 cars parked in front of my house. I recognized Max's car immediately. The second one was Lena's. The third one I didn't recognize. My stomach tightened. They were here. In my house. No, not in my house. They couldn't be inside. I hadn't given them a key. Had I? Then I remembered. Yes, I had given them a key 2 years ago. For emergencies, I had said. In case something happens to me and they need to get in. Because I trusted them. Because I thought they would take care of me just as I had taken care of them. I took a deep breath before walking to my front door. Through the windows, I could see movement inside. They were definitely in there, going through my house without permission while I was gone. I opened the door and walked into a scene that made my blood run cold. Max was sitting on my couch with his head in his hands. Lena was pacing back and forth like a caged animal, talking rapidly on her phone. And a man I had never seen before was sitting at my dining table going through papers. My papers, my personal documents, what is happening here? I asked. My voice came out louder than I expected, filling the room with authority I didn't know I had. All three of them turned to look at me. The stranger stood up immediately, adjusting his expensive-looking suit and putting on a professional smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Mrs. Richter," Lena said, rushing toward me. "Thank God you're here. We've been so worried. We tried calling you all day." I turned my phone off, I said simply. I was busy living my life. Now I'll ask again. "What are you doing in my house?" The stranger stepped forward, extending his hand. "Mrs. Richter, I'm Dr. Fisher. I'm a family law attorney. Your son and daughter-in-law asked me to come here today because they're concerned about your recent behavior." I didn't shake his hand. Instead, I walked straight to my dining table and started gathering all my personal documents that he had been looking through without my permission. "These are my private papers. You have no right to look at them." "Mom?" Max finally spoke up. His voice had that condescending tone that made me feel like a child being scolded. "We're worried about you. You canceled all our payments without any explanation. You won't answer our calls? This isn't like you. This isn't like me," I repeated slowly. "You're right. The old me would have kept paying your bills while you treated me like garbage. The old me would have kept giving and giving and giving until there was nothing left. But that woman is gone." Lena tried to take my hand. Her touch felt cold and manipulative. "Renata, sweetheart, we know you're going through something difficult. Maybe the loneliness is affecting you more than you realize. At your age, it's normal to have some confusion." That word, confusion. It echoed in my head like an alarm bell. That's when I understood what was really happening here. This wasn't a concerned family visit. This was a plan. They had brought a lawyer to my house to declare me mentally incompetent. To take control of my finances. To make sure the money kept flowing. "I am not confused," I said with a strength that surprised even me. "I am clearer than I have been in years." Dr. Fisher cleared his throat. "Mrs. Richter, I understand you might feel defensive, but your family has a legal right to intervene if they believe your decision-making capacity is impaired. Sudden changes in financial behavior can be a sign of cognitive decline." Cognitive decline. They were really going to do this. They were really going to try to have me declared mentally unfit because I stopped being their ATM. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," I said, looking at each of them in turn. "For 3 years, it was perfectly fine for me to make financial decisions when those decisions involved giving you my money. But now that I've decided to keep my money for myself, suddenly I'm mentally incompetent?" Max stood up, his face red with frustration. "Mom, this isn't about the money. Don't you dare lie to me," I cut him off. "This is completely about the money. When have you ever come to visit me just because you wanted to see me? When have you ever called me just to ask how I'm doing? When have you ever treated me like I matter for anything other than what I can give you?" The room went silent. The truth hung in the air like smoke, thick and undeniable. Lena recovered first. She always recovered first. "Renata, that's not fair. We love you. You're part of our family. Everything you have is going to be ours someday anyway. We're just trying to make sure it's managed properly." There it was. The truth finally spoken out loud. Everything I had would be theirs someday. I was just a temporary obstacle between them and their inheritance. "Get out," I said quietly. "Mom," Max started. "Get out." This time I shouted it. "Get out of my house right now." "All three of you," Dr. Fisher picked up his briefcase calmly. "Mrs. Richter, this isn't over. If your family believes you're making decisions that put you at risk, they have legal options. A judge can determine if you need a guardian to manage your affairs. Then you go talk to a judge, I said, walking to my front door and opening it wide. You go ahead and try to convince a judge that a woman who successfully managed a household for 40 years, who raised a son alone after her husband died, who worked and saved and built a life, is suddenly incompetent the moment she stops funding her ungrateful child's lifestyle. They walked toward the door slowly, like they were giving me time to change my mind. To apologize. To back down, I didn't. As they reached the door, Max turned back one more time. Mom, you're going to regret this. When you really need us, when you're sick or old and have no one to take care of you, you're going to wish you hadn't burned this bridge. I looked at my son. The boy I had given birth to, raised, loved with every fiber of my being. The man who had just threatened me because I stopped funding his life. Max, I said softly, I'm already old. I already have no one who truly cares about me. The difference is, now I know it. Now I'm not lying to myself anymore. I closed the door behind them and locked it. Then I went to every window and made sure they were all locked too, and then I sat down on my couch and cried. But these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of release, tears of anger, tears of freedom. That night I barely slept. Not because I was sad or scared, but because my mind was racing with everything I needed to do. If Max and Lena wanted to fight me legally, I needed to be prepared. I needed to build a defense that would protect me and my money from their manipulation. At 6 a.m, I was already dressed and ready. I had a list of things to do, people to see, actions to take. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a purpose that wasn't about serving someone else's needs. My first stop was the office of Mr. Weber, an attorney I had met years ago when I was settling my husband's estate. He had been kind and professional then, and I remembered thinking he was someone I could trust. Unlike Dr. Fisher, who had been going through my papers without permission, Mr. Weber had always respected boundaries. His secretary told me he had an opening at 10 o'clock. I took it immediately. When I sat down in his office and explained everything that had happened, Mr. Weber listened without interrupting. He took notes. He asked clarifying questions. And when I finished, he sat back in his chair and shook his head slowly. Mrs. Richter, he said, what your children attempted yesterday is called elder financial abuse. It's a federal crime. The fact that they entered your home without permission and reviewed your private documents also constitutes a violation of your privacy. Hearing him say it out loud made it real. My own son had committed a crime against me. We need to document everything, he continued. Every transfer you made to them. Every gift. Every time they pressured you for money. We also need to change your will immediately to protect your assets from future manipulation. We spent the next 3 hours going through my financial records. I had brought everything with me. Bank statements, receipts, text messages asking for money, emails discussing their financial problems. All of it. When Mr. Weber saw the total amount, $33,400 in 3 years, he whistled softly. Mrs. Richter, with this money, you could have lived very comfortably. You could have traveled, enjoyed your retirement, had a safety net for your own future emergencies. I know, I said quietly. I know that now. I'm going to be very direct with you, Mr. Weber said. If they try to have you declared incompetent, they won't succeed. Your financial records show careful management of your money for decades. The only period of unusual spending is these 3 years when you were supporting them. If anything, stopping that support shows improved judgment, not declining capacity. His words filled me with relief I hadn't known I needed. However, he continued, we should take some proactive steps. First, I'm going to write a letter to Dr. Fisher informing him that any further contact with you must go through me. Second, we're going to schedule you for a cognitive assessment with an independent doctor. This way, you'll have medical documentation of your mental competence. And third, he said, pulling out some papers, we're going to revise your will. Right now, Max is your primary beneficiary. I'm assuming you want to change that? I thought about it for a moment. Did I want to completely cut Max out of my will? Even after everything he had done, he was still my son. But then I remembered his face when he threatened me. His voice when he said I would regret this. His complete lack of remorse for excluding me from his wedding. Yes, I said firmly. I want to change it. We spent another hour discussing options. I decided to leave most of my estate to charity. Organizations that help elderly people who are being financially abused by their families. It felt appropriate somehow. My pain could help prevent someone else from going through the same thing. I left a small amount to Max, $5,000. Enough to show that I hadn't forgotten him, but nowhere near enough to reward his behavior. When I left Mr. Weber's office, I felt protected in a way I hadn't before. I had a legal advocate. I had documentation. I had a plan. My next stop was the hardware store. I needed to change all the locks on my house immediately. Max and Lena still had keys, and I didn't trust them not to come back when I wasn't home. Mr. Summer, the owner, had known me for years. I had bought so many things from him over the years, always fixing something in Max and Lena's apartment. "Mrs. Richter," he said when he saw me. "Another repair project?" "Yes," I said. "But this time it's for my own house. I need to change all my locks. Every single one. And I want the best quality you have." He looked surprised but didn't ask questions. While he was preparing the locks, his son Ethan came by. Ethan owned a security company and installed alarm systems. "Ethan," I said, "I also need a complete security system for my house. Cameras, motion sensors, alarms, everything." "Everything?" he asked, surprised. "Mrs. Richter, has something happened? Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I assured him. "I'm just taking steps to protect myself and my property. Can you install it this week?" "I can start tomorrow," he said. "Perfect." I spent the rest of the day making appointments. A cognitive assessment with Dr. Morrison, a respected geriatric specialist. An appointment with my regular doctor for a complete physical to document my good health. An appointment with my accountant to review my financial situation and plan my budget going forward. For years, my calendar had been empty except for activities related to Max and Lena. Now it was filling up with appointments for myself, my health, my future, my protection. When I got home that evening, there were 17 missed calls on my phone, all from Max and Lena. There were also 12 text messages, each one more desperate than the last. "Mom, please call us back. Mom, this is serious. We need to talk. The landlord came today. He says if we don't pay by Friday, we're out. Mom, we can't be evicted. Where will we go? Are you really going to let your own son become homeless? Mom, please. We're sorry about the wedding. We made a mistake. Please help us." I read through all of them without responding. Each message revealed their increasing panic, their increasing desperation, their increasing realization that their golden goose had finally stopped laying eggs. The last message was from Lena. It was long and rambling. "Renata, I don't understand what's happening. We love you. Your family. Max is your only son. How can you turn your back on us like this? We made one mistake with the wedding. One mistake, and you're going to punish us forever? That's not the woman I know. That's not the kind, generous, loving person who has always been there for us. Please, I'm begging you. We need your help. We need you." I read that message 3 times, and then I deleted it along with all the others. They needed me. But only when needing me meant getting my money. They didn't need me at their wedding. They didn't need me at their celebrations. They didn't need me in their happy moments or their photos or their memories. They only needed me when the rent was due. The next few days passed in a blur of activity. Ethan came and installed security cameras around my house. I could now see who was at my door before opening it. I could monitor my property from my phone. I had evidence if anyone tried to enter without permission. The locksmith changed every lock. New keys that only I had copies of. Max and Lena's old keys were useless now. I went to Dr. Morrison for my cognitive assessment. He put me through hours of tests. Memory tests, problem-solving tests, logical reasoning tests. At the end, he smiled at me. "Mrs. Richter, your cognitive function is excellent for someone of any age, let alone 71. Your memory is sharp, your reasoning is sound, and your judgment appears completely intact. If anyone questions your mental competency, I'll be happy to testify otherwise. I walked out of his office with an official letter documenting my perfect mental health, another piece of armor in my defense. The phone calls and text messages from Max and Lena continued nonstop. Sometimes angry, sometimes pleading, sometimes trying to guilt me, sometimes trying to manipulate me. I didn't respond to any of them. On Friday afternoon, exactly 1 week after they had told me about their secret wedding, Lena showed up at my door. I saw her on my new security camera, pressing my doorbell over and over, then knocking loudly, then calling my phone while standing right outside. I watched her on the camera but didn't open the door. "Renata," she yelled through the door. "I know you're in there. Your car is in the driveway. Please, just open the door and talk to me." I stayed silent. "We got evicted today," she continued, her voice breaking. "The landlord kicked us out. All our stuff is on the sidewalk. We have nowhere to go. Please, Renata, please." I felt a small twinge of something. Not guilt exactly. Maybe just the echo of the woman I used to be. The woman who would have run to help them immediately. But then I remembered. I remembered Lena's face when she told me about the wedding. I remembered her cruel smile. I remembered her words. "We only invited special people." I stayed silent. "This is your fault." Lena's tone changed suddenly from pleading to angry. "You did this to us. You knew we depended on you. You knew we couldn't pay rent without your help. And you just cut us off without warning.